Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to focus on traits of the ego and how we start to observe our ego and the tricks it tries to play on us. You're going to go through a lot of parts of this process where we think we are listening to our higher self and we're listening to our ego. It's very funny how we talk about our ego as the most unconscious part of us, right? I know I've said that. You'll hear other people probably explain it like that. It's the most unconscious part of you. It's the part of you that truly has no free will because it's not conscious. It's kind of like if you don't know what aspect of you is talking, if you can't identify what aspect of you is in charge, technically you have no free will. You have no choice because you don't realize what you're doing. You don't realize who's talking, who's talking here. Is it my ego? Is it one of my higher aspects? Who's actually in charge here? But the ego is tricky. And it does start to kind of learn to know how you're identifying it and try to go back around it and try to go back around you and try a different tactic. So we're going to look at trying to pull that apart today. Our DNA is twisted because our human realities are twisted. You start untwisting your human reality, you start untwisting our DNA, which gets into a whole genetic thing, but I'll do that on another video. So I'll talk about what tricks my ego will do. One of the first one it'll do is it has to be done immediately. Oh, you can't wait. You're going to miss out. You have to do this right now. You're going to miss out on that opportunity. You're going to miss out on that person. You're going to miss out on this chance. You have to do it immediately. I had a friend that would say, no good choices are made at like 2 a.m. And it kind of would always remind me of that. Anytime you feel rushed to make a choice, that's your ego trying to do that. Now, there is a caveat to that one for me. If I have not done something and I have set on something, I have procrastinated, which is another thing our ego will do, it'll procrastinate. If I procrastinated and I knew I had to do something and I just didn't do it, and I didn't do it, and I didn't do it, and my reality started to collapse, which kind of happened to me when I was in the last move I did, because I kind of waited a little bit too long to get everything ready because I wasn't quite okay with leaving. So I had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of programming going on there. So the only time I'm going to be rushed to make a choice is when I have set on the choice. And then it'll collapse and there is no more choice anymore. I've run out of time because I've let myself run out of time. I've run out of this timeline has ended. I ran out of this timeline and it's like now it's nothing else left. It's like what's the word I want to use? It's the Titanic is sunk. There's nothing here, and I'm still trying to cling on to air. There's nothing to cling on to. It's kind of like the old Roadrunner videos where he's kind of clinging to something, and then all of a sudden he realizes he's clinging to nothing. That's what'll happen. The timeline runs out. That's really, when we talk about a timeline collapse, that's what that is. The timeline just ended. And we're still waiting for what we wanted the timeline to be, but it never was because in the frequency we're in, the timeline can't be that. The timeline can't be that because that's not the frequency we're in. So we kind of go through a lot of back and forth on like, what is this? What is going on here? Why did this collapse on me? So that one's kind of twofold. Normally though, I don't procrastinate. And that's another thing our ego is going to get us to do. It's going to get us to procrastinate. It's going to get us to not do things. It's going to say that can wait. Whereas other things have to be done immediately. Oh, that can wait. Usually the highest line thing, our ego is going to tell us that can wait. Because normally they're not big things. There might be a little thing we have to do. Like if we have clothes, I'm going to take clothes down to a donation center and my ego will say, well, that can wait. Well, it can't wait. But there will be another part of me that will say, no, it has to be done today. Because today's the day you're going to be able to do it because tomorrow you got to do something else. You have to do this now. So you're going to have these, it'll take some mastery to kind of figure out who's talking. So really look at what are your ego go-tos. And if we're going to strip it down, the ego is kind of a self-centered thing. It's always going to be looking out for number one, not yourself. It's not going to be looking out for humanity. It's looking out for numero uno. And if I can strip it down to see, is this choice looking out for me or is this choice looking out for everybody else? You can normally get a gauge on who's talking. Another thing my ego will do is make me feel like I'm going to lose something. And if a timeline's getting ready to end, if I'm trying to close it out, if we're kind of stuck in time, so we can be, I don't like the word stuck because we're really never stuck, but if we're in a timeline that doesn't make us happy, we're in a timeline that we don't feel bliss, we don't feel magic, but we don't want to let it go. This is a big one when we get into our ascension process, is having to realign timelines. I see a lot of people get to a certain place with ascension and they're happy, they feel bliss, they feel magic, and now they're done. Because they don't want to do the next step, which means transforming your life. You have to start touching on the things that aren't aligned, but you haven't been ready to go there yet. You haven't been ready to leave that relationship. You haven't been ready to move. You haven't been ready to quit that job. You haven't been ready to sever ties, perhaps with your blood family, or do the big thing that might cause judgment from other people who are not operating from the consciousness you're operating from. And that doesn't mean, but that can only happen if we hold judgment ourselves. If we don't judge ourselves, no one can judge us. So if we hold judgment, then everyone can judge us. So everyone always looks at, oh, I'm being judged. Well, we're being judged because we projected that out because we're judging ourselves for what we're doing. So where are we not willing to line in a movie called You've Got Mail a long time ago. I don't know how old that movie is. The movie's kind of old. But one of the lines in the movie was, it's no one else, but there's a dream of someone else. And sometimes we have to be there. There might not be another reality you can see yourself popping into, but there's a dream of another one. We can imagine another one. And that's when we talk about our consciousness. Our consciousness can imagine another one because technically it exists. If we imagine it, it exists. If we see it in our dream state, it exists. You can't think of something that doesn't exist. That's why imagination is so important. People will say, well, how come it's not here? Because our body's not in that frequency. It's twofold. Your consciousness can hit it, but your body's not in that frequency yet. So which goes into cleansing our physical body, getting our emotional body clean, getting our physical body clean, our energetic body, all different bodies. But our energetic body is what cleans out the other bodies. Our energetic body is what, once we merge with our energetic body, it starts cleaning out the emotional body. It starts cleansing the physical body through the emotional body, in a sense. It starts roto-rooting through all our programming to get things cleansed, to get things clean. So our body can be at that vibration. Our body can sit there. And it goes beyond just what you eat. It goes beyond all that. It's also taking yourself out of situations that disempower us, taking us out of situations that we know are not aligned. We can look at a situation and know it doesn't make me happy. It's not bliss. It's not magic. Why am I here? Why is my ego telling me I have to stay here? There's always another reality. We always have a choice. We just might not like the choice we have. We don't like the other choice, but we always have one. We just don't like it. It's not the sexy choice. It's not what someone is going to look and go, wow, you really upgraded. Everyone's going to look at your life for a while and go, boy, it looks like you downgraded. Because people who are going to see it that way, and it's also going to be projecting that back because you feel that way too. They're going to be projecting it back at us, where it's like, oh, do I feel that way? Do I feel like I have downgraded? If you're looking at physical things, it might feel like that, because you also have to lose that attachment to the physical things, your identity to those things, your identity to where you live, a new car, the money you have, the clothes you wear, all that stuff you have to distance yourself from. Break that attachment, break that identity to where that is what I'm made up of. because we're more than that. But our ego is going to make us think that's all we are. So it's going to appear that way because when you're the human realities and the soul aligned realities are totally different realities. I've talked before about people trying to take a soul aligned reality, what they think is a soul aligned reality, but they're still doing it from an ego, and it's really a human aligned reality. It doesn't mean you can't have all those things again, but you have them from a different vibration. You have them from a place of appreciation, which we don't have in our ego consciousness. We don't have that. We just don't. Our ego also doesn't like if there's a physical body pain that comes with ascension. I know lately, the last 2 days, I've had a rash all over my arms. And I'm like, oh, crystals in my body. I'm trying to clear something. And because I don't take anything for any of that stuff anymore, I let my body kind of do it naturally. There's a part of my ego's like, see, look at all this. Ego's going to want to kind of keep you away from that. Now, in the defense of the ego, our ego is trying to keep us from those things. That's what it was supposed to do. We don't really get rid of our ego. We kind of learn to love our ego, but we know that's what it is. It's just our ego. It's not a conscious part of us. It's going to have tricks. It's going to change what it does. It's going to be shifty. It's like a little shapeshifter. It's going to do one thing one time. It's going to dangle a carrot at you another time and go, are you really done with human realities? What if you got this? What if it was door number 1? Or if you don't like that one, how about door number 2? Even though they don't feel aligned, even though we know we're going to chase down another rabbit hole, because we can tell the frequency we're going into it with. That's what's important. It's not so much the reality, it's the frequency you're starting it in. That's the difference. If you're going into it with lack and need and less than, then it's not going to be highest aligned, and it's just going to be another karmic lesson. Now, for a while, we're going to go through this because that's how we learn. But you're going to eventually pick through your ego. You're going to be able to see what it does, the tricks it does, and be able to kind of pull it apart to really see, wow, I had no idea that was my ego all along. I thought I was being in my highest place, and I wasn't. Look at what you're not willing to do. I've seen a lot of people that try to mask it as something else, but they don't want to do stuff. I know I had a guy one time that wanted to work so badly, wanted to work in the baseball field, and he wanted to work for the Mets. And I think it was the Mets. It might not have been the Mets, but that's what comes to mind. And I said, well, what are you willing to do? Oh, I would do anything. I was like, would you get coffee? Would you be the coffee person for the Mets? And he's like, oh, I would never get coffee, because he'd come from a very high, status job in another field. Like, no, I wouldn't get coffee. I would never do that. So you've already limited yourself on what you're willing to do. If you're in a kick-ass reality that you love and everyone's in it and everyone's working together, who gives a shit if you're getting coffee? I'll get coffee in that reality every day if it's reality that's serving humanity, that's highest aligned, that I'm enjoying. Who cares what I'm doing? But when you're putting a limit on it of what you're willing to do because you don't like the judgment, you're putting a human judgment on a soul aligned, I'm going to call it a job you might be doing for a while. You might be having to clean up. You might have to do whatever. It doesn't matter, because we do all those things. I clean this house. I detail my car. I do all my own stuff. We have to be willing to do everything. We can't sit there going, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's beneath me. Soul aligned realities, there's no above or below. So if you're looking at something and saying, oh no, I can't do that, you're immediately shutting down that reality because you're not willing to do that. You have to be willing to do it all. And if you're not willing to do it all, we have to look at why we're not willing to do it all. So it's a hard look at ourselves and what we're willing to do, what we're not willing to do, what we believe in, what we don't believe in, why we look at some things and go, yeah, that feels like that's aligned. But then we really start to dig into it. Why do I want it? Am I being rushed to make the choice? Why does someone want me to make a choice immediately? I know right away, if voices are raised in any reality, the shit is not aligned. The shit has been way out of alignment at that point for a while, and now voices are raised because it's so out of alignment. So look at who's talking. Look at the tricks your ego plays on you. Start to figure out the game, and look at when it pivots. And it does a different trick. Because it knows that might get her, that might get him back. We'll do this now and see if he'll want to come back to the human reality. So I'm going to make this one a little short today because I want to get something up on my LinkedIn, and they have like a 15-minute window. So, okay, keep practicing the art of intuition.